there, and welcome to our show, The Shit No One Tells You About Writing. I'm bestselling author Bianca Murray, and I'm joined by CeCe Lyra of Wendy Sherman Associates and Carly Waters of PS Literary.
Hello, everyone. If you're watching us from YouTube, hi, I'm waving hi. If you're listening to us, hello, welcome. Today I have a very special guest. She is not just an amazing author, although of course she's that too. She's also my client. Dr. Tracy Dalgleish is here with us. I'm going to read you her bio straight up from her latest book. Dr. Tracy Dalgleish is a clinical psychologist, couples therapist, and sought-after relationship expert. She is the creator of Be Connected Digital, where she teaches people all over the world how to have healthy relationships. Her work has been featured in outlets like the New York Times, Forbes, and Time, and her research has appeared in peer-reviewed academic journals. She is the author of the book I Didn't Sign Up for This and the host of the Top 100 Parenting podcast, Dear Dr. Tracy. The owner of the mental health clinic Integrated Wellness. She lives in Ottawa with her husband and 2 children. Welcome, Dr. Tracy.
Hi, CeCe. Thank you so much. And it's always an interesting experience to have your bio read in front of you.
Right? How did that feel?
It's incredible. I mean, I remind people nothing happens overnight. What I've done did not just happen in the last 2 years. I think a lot of people see me publishing, see my online space, and think, how many months have you been doing this? And it's not months, it's years. And we're looking at decades at this point.
Yeah. And also a lot of invisible work, I might imagine, right? Before the visible work happens.
Always. And we're having this conversation. So for listeners, my husband and I are actually in business together. So in 2021, he joined behind the scenes and he's been supporting my online work and all of the publishing behind the scenes pieces like pre-order bonuses and things like that. In 2019, he's actually the one who initiated us opening our own mental health clinic here. So a lot of people see what I've created and what I'm doing, and they think, oh, you're doing, there's 2 thoughts. 1, you're doing this on your own, or 2, you have this massive team behind you. And it's in between.
Yeah.
It's me and my husband, and there's so much invisible work that happens behind the scenes that a lot of people don't get to see. And I know we're going to talk more about it today.
Well, this is a really nice seg because you just said me and my husband. And of course, your new book, the title is You, Your Husband, and His Mother. Again, our YouTube fans, I'm holding up the cover. It is a beautiful cover, in my opinion. I want to know how you feel about the cover, so please do comment on this if you are watching. You, Your Husband, and His Mother. I mean, the title says it all. It's about this triangle, right? Like this triangle in relationships. And whether you're a nonfiction author or a fiction author, relationships are at the heart of who we are as humans, of the human condition, and therefore of writing about it. And so my first question to you officially is, we've been here before. I read your bio. You have a first book out. We worked on that book. That was the first time we ever worked together. And your first book came out a few years ago. How does it feel to be back with your sophomore title? Like, not just here on the podcast, but you have now written 2 books, like how do the experiences compare?
It's really interesting because I don't feel like the new kid on the block anymore. I've been here before. Things are familiar. And also this really sinking into what it means to do something that you love. I love writing. I love sharing stories. I love peeling back the curtain and showing people what everyday lives look like and the real struggles, and particularly in this book and how different this one is from the first one, because the first one read more like fiction and with more of a memoir feel to it. This one is very self-help, and there's stories in it, which I know people are just going to love to read the stories and see the very real struggles that people have in this dynamic. But to kind of sit in the seat and to say, oh, I'm doing this, and it's thrilling and it's hard. And then at the same time, my brain is already on book 3. You know that. My brain is already going.
And I think that's the thing about publishing, right? Like, what people see never matches what's actually happening behind the scenes.
Yes.
Like, what's happening behind the scenes matches what's happening now, but with the time jump, Like, we'll be talking about book 3 when? I don't even know. Not now, but then you're thinking about book 3 now.
I saw this thread that said it was giving the Easter eggs from Taylor Swift's anti-hero video to then her Life of a Showgirl album out now. And someone saying, wow, how far in advance has this person,
Yeah.
has this creator, this woman done? And I thought about it. And I thought about some of our early conversations. You knew this was going to be my second book.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
I knew
A
this was
long
going to
time
be one
ago.
of my
Yeah.
books back in 2011 in one of the first
Yeah.
experiences I write about in
Yeah.
the beginning of the book. And so it's interesting being this creator and an author because so there's two thoughts I want to share here. One is it's like the creative part that Liz Gilbert talks about in Big Magic, how it's like the universe is waiting for us to just grab it and pull it down. And both of these books very much felt like that. But this book came faster. I wrote it really fast. It was almost like the words were just hanging over me and I just had to pull it down. That was the first piece and I love that piece of when we sit in our creative space and we don't let the front of the brain take over. And the front of the brain does all of the, is this good enough? What are you doing? You're a fraud. Like, that's not perfect. That's not enough. And the front of my brain was so busy writing my first book. That was one I had to really work through. This one, it just felt like I was being. And the universe was providing me this book. I knew where it was coming from. And also, too, for listeners, this also comes from my almost 20 years of working with people, the clinical work that I've seen, the everyday stories, and then how I integrate that together. So there's that element there. But CeCe, I think there's this other element here with this book where this time more so than the first time, I feel like I am ready to release this to the world. And again, going back to what Taylor Swift had said about her album and about creating art and artists, it's that I don't get to control what other people do with this now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put it out there and it's now yours. You get to decide what you do with it. I've given you this art, this piece. Now you get to decide what to do with it. And you and I have talked a lot about that, how other people's opinions of your work is none of your business. And that is something that I've really sunk into now as a second author versus the first-time author who was very caught up in, am I good enough? Is this enough? Is it perfect? What are people going to think?
Absolutely. I love that. That's a really important message. And I feel like not only is it better for your mental health, it's also better for your creativity. Our brains waste energy when, I shouldn't say waste, but our brains spend energy when we are thinking about, am I good enough? Is this good enough? Are people going to like it? That is energy that we are spending on things. And so if we can not spend energy on those things, then guess what? There's more space freed up to do the great creative work that you do here. So for someone who is not familiar with your second book, give them the elevator pitch. Like, someone asks you, imagine you're going through border control and, an agent's like, oh, you're an author? Like, what's your book about? What would you respond?
With nearly 20 years of experience, every single couple comes to my office wanting to get on the same page. And one of those biggest desires is about having healthy family relationships. And yet, when you bring two different family systems together, oftentimes, this is a struggle. And the common theme I kept seeing for people is that women get stuck in this binary role. They're either the victim in the story, meaning that everything is happening to them, or they're the villain. And they're scapegoated and they're called the bad guy and all the problems are on them. And women today, especially women, know different and they want different. And we are parenting differently than previous generations. We're dividing mental load and visible labor differently. And we also expect more. And so because of this difference, there is this tension that's showing up between families not being able to communicate. And my goal with this book is so that you can pull your seat up at the table, you bring in your main character energy, and you align yourself with your partner so that you can keep having those family events that are going to feel more aligned with you and have a strong marriage at the same time.
I love that. Main character energy. Love that. On the publishing side, you switched publishers for this book, right? So your first book, I didn't sign up for this, was with a different publisher. And you made the choice, and it was entirely your choice, of going with a different publisher this time. Could you share a little bit about that experience? Because I know that's something our listeners are going to notice, and they're going to go like, huh, what's the story there?
It's a really interesting experience to take something that's familiar and then go to an unfamiliar space. And CeCe, you know, and you've commented on this before, of how therapists like of me that I describe experiences as interesting. And it is this curiosity on a lot of different things. First, on procedures. Procedures are different, processes are different. On opportunities. Also, there's this sense of opportunity to try something different. And that's a risk. I think that's a risk. Like when we think about what our brains like familiarity. And so I knew what to expect with the other publisher. I knew what the process was going to look like. And that was familiar. And then to go to somewhere else, it brings that skited feeling, scared and excited. How is this going to work? What will it look like? What's the editing process like? And I have nothing but positive things to say about making that change and having just this amazing team and full support behind that. And I think that as an author is exactly what we wish for. And to be able to say I've gotten that, it has just been amazing. I mean, and you've seen the behind the scenes emails and all the work that's gone into bringing this book. I had a really supportive editor who, you know, I think we communicated really well together.
Yes.
And
shout out to Lauren O'Neill from Tarcher. Yes. Big shout out. Lauren is one of the good ones.
And she's been this right from the beginning when we first pitched the book. She was so excited. And I remember you saying, like, you could just see how excited she was for this book and for the concept and for the stories within it and how much we're going to, how far we could potentially bring this book. And it really has been that just all throughout. And if anyone's ever kind of wondering, I think of something that my dad had said to me when we were deciding whether to open our mental health clinic, because it was a financial risk at the time. My family has this long history of entrepreneurship and business. And he said, without risk, there's little reward. That's something I really hold on to in publishing.
Yeah. And, you know, I feel like when you are taking risks, it helps to have someone in your corner. And you have that with your husband, who is someone who can help, and obviously your family. And I mean, I guess it just makes a difference to remember you're not alone, you know, and it's an amazing piece to have that kind of support. It's something you've developed and built over time. And it's really inspiring to see. Your answer makes me think that we need to tell listeners about the behind the scenes of pitching this book. So, okay, as Tracy's agent, I'll set the stage. She knew what her second book was going to be. She came to me and said the number one reason couples are not on the same page has to do with in-law behavior. And I was like, are you sure it's not money? She's like, no. And I'm like, are you sure it's not infidelity? She's like, no. Those are things too. But the number one reason they're not on the same page and they're struggling has to do with in-laws. And I'm like, okay, I don't know why I was so surprised, because I grew up in a house where my mom struggled so much with her in-laws. Not at all her fault, by the way, I should say. Like, and this is not my mom brainwashing me, guys. This is just not who I am as a human. I'm a very critical person. That family was hard. My father's family was hard. Anyway, point is,
as we know that many families are hard.
Yeah, but like, just saying. There's a lot there.
Anyway. CeCe was also on my pre-order bonus coaching call that I gave the other day. And so
a fly on the wall, just as a fun person listening in. I had nothing official to do with it. I was just like, can I go?
You heard the stories, and Greg has also, I mean, Greg knows some of the stories that come in, and he's just that like,
Yeah.
whoa. I don't want to interrupt the story. Okay, you keep going because
No.
I have
No,
something in there.
no. Come on. Tell me.
Okay,
No, tell
there's
me.
one
Let's
there's one
talk.
piece I want to
Yeah.
add because I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
you saying this, and you had said I kept asking other agents or editors if they had a good relationship with their mother-in-law, or no, how's your relationship with your mother-in-law?
Yeah.
And you came to me saying everyone keeps saying they have a good relationship with their mother-in-law, so I don't know about this book. And then when I ask my community the different question, and this is the key piece, this is the difference. Have you and your partner ever gotten into conflict because of his mother? 86% of people polled said yes. And that's the difference there. Because a lot of women, here's the power dynamic. As a daughter-in-law, we want to be liked and accepted into their family. And so we are going to say, yeah, it's a good relationship. We're probably not going to tell you all of those little paper cuts that have been happening over the years.
I also feel like the bar is so low for what society considers to be a good relationship with in-laws,
Right.
that often people say, oh, it's good, it could be worse. And then they think of like some other scenario where it's really, really, really bad, like 3 reallys versus 2 reallys or 1 really. And then they say it's good, because we have that tendency to like diminish. Anyway, point is, I was like surprised that it was the number one source of conflict, but I'm like, that sounds so great. So I started asking around to see which editors to submit this to. This is a very fluid process because you really want to target the people who have the vision for the book and who understand it. And yes, to a degree, that's a personal thing, meaning I remember one editor said, I get along with my mother-in-law really well, but my mom didn't, like her mom hadn't. And so she understood the conflict because she had seen it between her mom and her paternal grandmother. I know another editor who said, this is someone who offered on your book, or who was about to offer. We'll get to that story soon. Another editor said, I don't have a mother-in-law because her husband's mom had passed away, but her brother, she saw how her mom treated his wife, meaning her kind of sister-in-law, like,
right.
And she was like, my mom is a terrible mother-in-law and she's a wonderful mom. I don't understand. Like, how could she be a great mom and a terrible mother-in-law? And she often sides with her brother's wife and goes, stop, you're not being reasonable, mom. Anyway, point is, it doesn't have to be your relationship with your mother-in-law. Like, it just does not have to be for you to understand the appeal of this book. And so I was trying to find editors. And so we did, and we went out on submission. And again, I did have a moment where I was like, is this book going to be too niche? Because people keep telling me I love my mother-in-law. Holy guacamole. Everyone wanted this book. Everyone and their mother-in-law wanted this book. Everyone wanted this book. And we were all set to go to a major auction because everyone was telling me, like, I'm going to go to war for this book, et cetera, et cetera. We had lots of calls with editors. And there was one editor, of course, who on all the calls really stood out to you. And this editor decided to preempt. And so a preempt, for listeners, if you're not familiar, is when an editor makes an offer and it is understood that this offer is higher than they might normally go, with the intention of conveying the message, hey, take the book off the table, don't go to auction, come with me, meaning accept this preempt versus whatever could happen at auction. And if an author says no, the editor might still go to auction. They usually do, but they usually make a lower offer at auction. And then it can go up or it can go down. Like, obviously many things could happen if you go to auction. It's a bigger risk. But do you remember where you were?
I'm still right.
You?
I'm still right in that chair. I lived that moment. I have seen that moment many times in my mind. And my only sad part is I don't have it on video, which I'm also glad because I fully live in my moments in life. I know exactly where I was. And I remember saying to you, I have no words. And it brings tears actually to my eyes to remember this process of what? Are you sure? Are you? And when you would text me to talk on the phone, I thought, oh no, oh my goodness.
I also remember you said something really sweet. I don't know if you'll remember this, but you were traveling when this happened, when we first got the preempt. And I remember you saying, I shared all the details and you were like, it's her. She's the one I wanted, meaning the editor, right? Because again, you enjoyed conversations with all the editors, but the preempt came from the editor you really wanted to work with. And what I always tell my clients is, listen, preempts are great, but if it's not from your dream editor, then it's up to you. But I wouldn't go for it, no matter how
For
high
sure.
it is, because you want to work with the person who gets your book. And of all the calls, Lauren was the person who was most, I don't even think she was the most enthusiastic, though that's also true. Everyone was enthusiastic. I think she got your vision. Like, she understood your vision for this book to a different degree. Would you agree?
Yes, I would absolutely agree. And everyone was so lovely. And I think everyone could have brought the book to whatever they had that vision to be. But Lauren really was I'm going to sit beside you and you guide.
Yeah. And then anyway, that's what happened. Tracy took the preempt and we're here with this beautiful book in front of us. I'm going to hold it up again just because I love holding up this book. I'm having a problem because usually, so agents get copies of their clients' books. This is normal. It's in the contract. I'm having a big problem because my DMs are blowing up with people being like, oh my God, I really need a copy of this book. I really need a copy of this book. And I'm like, I thought you really loved your mother-in-law. Like, what's going on? Why do you need this book? Well, I do, but I could also really use this book. And I'm thinking to myself, all these sneaky people kept lying to me all these years. You guys are
You were asking the wrong question.
I was asking the wrong question. Also, they were lying to me. Honestly, I'm like, now I know. Now I know who actually needs this book or not. And I will say, as someone who legitimately does have a great relationship with my mother-in-law, I am very lucky. My mother-in-law, this book has types of mothers-in-law, and my mother-in-law is a wonderful type that's in this book. She is amazing. She is my biggest supporter. She texts me all the time to say, I hear you have this big thing coming up, whatever the thing is, an auction or whatever. You're amazing. You're going to kill it. I love you so much. Like, that's all. She doesn't expect anything from it. She's just very supportive and kind. And I'm very, very lucky. And my mother-in-law was here when we were having the calls. And I remember she wrote you a little note. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And I texted you her note.
Oh, I loved it. Her note was just the best. Yes.
And do you see, like, this is like, I feel like the test of like, do you have a supportive mother-in-law? Even when your daughter-in-law is an agent for a book like this, you're like, this is amazing. I love you. Good job with the book. Like, it's just really cool.
Yeah. The piece is, this is not a book about lighting your torch and going to burn down doors. We're not doing that. This is about helping women feel seen, helping to share stories and give voices to the painful experiences that have happened. But also, I sat with someone else on the podcast and on someone else's podcast, and they had said, I have a great relationship with my mother-in-law. I had some bumps with my sister-in-law. We are now in a good place. But when I went through your book and using the vault method inside the book, I immediately yelled to my husband, we need a marriage summit, because she wants to take all those exercises just so they can get really aligned. And that's what that method is. And a lot of people have said, this, I could easily use this with my father-in-law. I can easily use this with my own sister. And it is about putting the marriage at the forefront, because let's be real about this. When you're connected, when you feel secure, you're more resilient in everything you do. You're going to sit down at your desk and be able to be in your body and let the creative energy come through you, rather than feeling we just had this fight again about the holidays, and now I'm thinking about, I should have said this, and we're on different pages. No, this is you getting on the same page and feeling so deeply aligned. And that is about resilience.
And I feel like what I was going to say is, as someone who gets along with her mother-in-law, I still really enjoyed reading the book as a reader, because first of all, it helped me understand other dynamics in my life, not just mother-in-law dynamics and not just in-law dynamics, but it also really, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I'm going to be honest, it was really entertaining. Like, there were so many stories, and the stories are so juicy and interesting, kind of like the stories that I heard, during the session you had. I feel like as an agent, I'm fascinated with human relationships. And so hearing these relationship stories, it's also really great inspiration. Oh my God, that could be a novel. I would totally read that novel. Like, it's just a fun book to read. I don't think it was designed as a fun book to read as the number one goal of the book, but it's still a really fun book to read.
So I'm going to plug the book then for authors because
Yes.
I know, like, I think of all of the amazing webinars you do and all of the such beautiful, powerful conversations you have on this podcast. And it is about teaching people how to write about the interiority of someone, to talk about emotions, to hit those core struggles. So in
Yes.
chapter 4, you learn what relationship cycles look like. You have to show a relationship cycle between whoever it is in your story. And then in chapter 3, when I go through the inner children, those inner childs that are inside of us that still need love, support, and whatever that need is, you're going to learn what 10 are. And then you can use that in your story and developing your characters. And that I know from writing even the first one and from your teachings and pushing me along with that one with my first book, loved it so much. That's important. I know that really matters in this work.
And I will say, chapter 8 is great for tension. Great for tension. Because it's not just the interiority and the emotionality, right? It's the conflict. Great. No, it is. Like, it has so many valuable nuggets of, oh my God, this creates tension. And yes, as a fiction author, you might be like trying to create tension versus trying to diffuse tension. But learning to diffuse is essential to also conflict resolution, which might happen in your novel. So something to think about, everyone listening. Hardest part of writing this book and easiest part. Like, what was the rose? What was the thorn?
Oh, goodness. And I love Rose and Thorn. We do that at the dinner table with our kids all the time. The hardest part of writing this one, CeCe, is actually the timeline. I gave a really tight timeline with the belief that I could do this, knowing how ready this book was to come. And I remember speaking to someone who I was working with, and they said, 4 months. Well, most people write a book in 12. Most self-help experts, you're an expert in your field, write books in 12 months, a month a chapter. And she was hesitant that we were going to do this. And I said, we're going to do this. I am going to do this. And I did.
You did it. And you did it.
I did. I think I even submitted a week early, which is always like my joy.
So Tracy.
Something in early.
So
me. And that was hard because I sat down with my family. And again, this is the invisible stuff that people don't see as authors. When you see my book launch happening, when you see the posts on Instagram, the email letters, you don't see behind the scenes that I sat down with my kids and I said, hey, I've got this book deal. I'm writing a second book. And I'm going to really need you all to support me through the next 4 months. And they did. And the most beautiful thing is my daughter, she was 7 when I had shared this with her. She said, Mom, we've done this before. We know how to do it. And it was just the support from family. So that would be the thorn. The rose of this really is the entire experience from Tarcher and Penguin. The whole team has just really championed the book, stood behind it, having you as part of this. I mean, this journey, it's so meaningful because of how much I know people need this book. Just how much. And yesterday on the coaching call, people saying, I feel not alone. I needed this. I feel so seen. And I'm so glad it's not just me. And to know that this is meeting people where they're at, that is the most meaningful and powerful thing about that. And I know that's not quite about the writing process, but
no, but it's all creation. So I love that. If you had to fill in the blank of the following sentence, how would you fill in the blank? I am a blank writer.
Oh, the first thing that comes to mind is I am a spicy writer. I don't know if you believe that or not. Am I a spicy writer? Why did I think spicy?
Wait, but it depends. Define spicy.
I want to bring forward conversations that people are not having.
Yeah. In that case,
that's what I mean.
See, we think of spicy like sexy writing, like actual erotica.
And
I know.
There's no that's why I'm like, what?
I'm like, there's no erotica. Like, I mean, all for it if you want to add erotica for future books, but like, there's no erotica. Okay, yes, I definitely agree.
No, it's the conversations that people want to have but are too scared to have. That's what I mean. It's like I'm gonna take these hard conversations and bring them forward. Let's do this.
Yeah, you're a brave writer. You're a brave writer.
I like that.
I also think you're a chameleon. Like, I don't know if there's an adjective for that. Chameleonique. That's probably not a word. We can make it up. Yeah. you're capable of switching gears and writing in different styles and with different intentions in a very impressive and deft way, which is really hard to do. So I also
Thank
think
you.
that's true.
Thank you.
It's true. What message would you have for someone who wants to write, whether it's a memoir-esque book, kind of like your first book, whether it's self-help, expert-driven, someone who wants to write in the nonfiction space, creative nonfiction space, like what advice would you have for them?
The belief that your story should be told, that you need to first sink into whatever that is for you, and to believe that your story needs to be told and shared, and then to just keep sharing and talking about it and writing it. And if you get stuck, one of the things I've really leaned into through writing is not sitting at a desk. I go for walks and then I voice note myself as if I'm writing, and I talk about concepts and ideas, and I tell stories just through hearing my voice. And so it's not this traditional, you see me sitting at a desk writing. I'm doing it in so many different ways.
Yeah. I love that. You're always creating. You're always creating. It's not just pen to paper or I guess fingers to keyboard. Okay, to wrap this up, we're going to do a lightning round. I asked on social media, what advice or comment did you grow up hearing about in-laws in your family? So I'll share my own, something I heard as a kid a lot. And that's how I kicked it off. I said, I'll share mine first. Something that my mom would hear a lot, which I overheard because I was, a child in a house, was never complain about your husband doting on his mom, because a good husband is a good son first. Now, we're going to go through all these examples and you're going to tell me lightning round if you've heard this before in session from your clients or not. Can we do that?
Yep.
Okay. I have a feeling you're going to have heard all of them, but maybe there's an original one. Okay. Number 1, never marry a mama's boy.
I've heard it before.
My mother would advise me, cut the umbilical cord between her partner and his mother.
Yep. Umbilical cord. It's a very powerful analogy for the enmeshment that occurs.
Okay. Oh my God, this one I've heard before too. A son is a son till he takes a wife. A daughter's a daughter for the rest of her life.
Ooh. I have heard of some other pieces around something like that, but no, I haven't heard that one. Say it again, just so I can hold on to it.
A son is a son till he takes a wife. A daughter's a daughter the rest of her life.
Wow, I've never heard that before.
Interesting. Do you know what? I don't know, but I wonder if it's a cultural thing. Anyway, okay.
But I believe that is exactly the struggle, though. This is right.
It's across cultures, right? Yeah.
But this is the daughter. So I haven't heard that rhyme before. But the daughter turns to her family always. Yeah. But then the son is more likely to leave his family and not seek out their support because he goes with wife. Yes.
Okay. Another one. How they act around their family will influence how they act around you.
Yep.
Always meet them first before you marry so you know what you're going to be stuck with. Stuck is such a horrible verb.
I've heard that before, of course. Well, and in my book, I talk about, do you choose your husband or do you choose their family?
To be the bigger person and not argue with them. This is the advice this person heard.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I've heard that. And that, I think, we don't need to use the word argue, but I think that feeds into this, like, why is it that we get so stuck here? Because this idea that daughters-in-law should be obedient, and this generation is not following into that.
And it's such nonsense because, like, I'm a deeply confrontational person. So, like, take this with a grain of salt, listeners, but like, be the bigger person and not argue. I agree that argue is not the best verb, but like, how are you the bigger person by remaining silent and just not speaking your truth? Like, how is that being the bigger person? Like, I don't like this framing. I understand the person's not advocating for this. She's sharing things she heard.
Yes, that's the advice she was given.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Oh my God, look at this one. Be kind to your mother-in-law. She gave up her son.
I have actually heard
God.
mothers-in-law say, "You stole my son. You stole my son
Oh
from
my
me."
God. This person said, doing the dishes is a perfectly legal escape from his or her family. Okay, this one I want to know if you've heard it before and if you agree. Never say anything negative about his mother, not even if he's saying something negative. Don't even agree with him.
I've heard it, and I don't agree. And it's not there's a caveat in here. It's a nuance. You're allowed to say, "I don't like this behavior."
Yeah, yeah.
But
Is that
be
negative though,
careful
right?
though.
Like, yeah,
Right. And so my
yeah,
guidance to people though is do not attack your husband's mother because
yeah.
you instantly trigger defensiveness. In any
1000%.
child, you would trigger
Yeah,
defensiveness. You want to talk about
of
behavior
course.
that you don't like. Hmm.
Yeah. You want to validate. I mean, assuming that validation is merited, but not, yeah, not insult. You handle your family and let him handle his.
Yes, I have heard that one many times. And that also is a nuanced piece of guidance.
Watch how he treats his mother. That's how he'll treat you.
I've heard it before. And I you didn't ask me what my opinion on this, but I am going to share that.
Please, always share. I always want to know.
I mean, I think that really that depends. And that's such a psychologist response to say it depends. But because we see the broad human behavior and it's not what one person does, everybody does, because there are many situations where mom is on a pedestal and then he asks you to just obey and the treatment's not the same. Mom gets permission, but you are not given that same treatment.
I feel like I honestly feel, again, I am not the expert here, but like, again, as someone who's obsessed with human relationships, I feel like this sort of framing is actually feeding into the conflict because so much of the conflict comes from women feeling like it's an either or thing. Like you can either be loyal to your mother or your wife. You can like either. And no one's stealing your son when you marry someone. If you are, that means you are now the mother. Nobody wants to be a mother to your husband. Like that is not desirable.
No.
And so I think that this sort of framing feeds no one says, oh, watches how he treats, I don't know, his coworker, or that's how he'll treat you. They specifically go to the mother. And I feel like that just feeds into the whole, like, you are replacing the mother when you marry, which is just, I mean, first of all, ick. No. No, thank you. Nobody wants that. Also weird. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. So those.
And also for listeners, if they are in this sticky point, what I say to couples, I say this to men very clearly. We're not asking you to abandon your family. And now you are prioritizing your chosen family. Those emotions and needs in your home have to come first. And then and that's where my vault method comes in. You're building this sturdy structure. Your marriage, it's supposed to be aligned and on the same team. And then you bring your mom in a way that works for both of you.
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to quote my husband here. My husband's definition of love. We once had a discussion, like, what is love? And he said, love is priority. And initially I was like, I don't know that and then later I was like, oh yeah, I agree. Like love is priority. Love is priority. You know, you need to know what the priority is. Anyway. So
I love that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Thank you for joining. Okay, I'm going to hold up the book one more time as a very proud agent. Isn't it beautiful, everyone? So please go check out your husband, and his mother. Whether you're reading this because you really need this book, because you're stuck in a dynamic that you want to feel unstuck and empowered, whether you're reading this for help with writing your own fiction because it's filled with interesting relationship dynamics, or whether you're just reading this for entertainment because it's also super entertaining. Please go check it out. It comes out on November 4th, and we're also excited. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, CeCe.
Welcome all listeners to a very, very, very special episode. I'm like the happiest person over here right now because today we have an author whose book is going to change the world. Like, I'm not kidding. I am not overselling it. So Dr. Jonathan Lassiter is a polymath whose mission is to help others heal and thrive. He's a licensed clinical psychologist, author, speaker, and educator. Dr. Lassiter has been featured on NBC, PBS, Sirius XM, Forbes, and more. His psychotherapy practice is based in New York City, and this is not in his bio, but he's also my adored client. His book, How I Know White People Are Crazy, and Other Stories, Notes from a Frustrated Black Psychologist. All my books are special, but I'm hugging this one. I'm hugging this one. I want you guys to know that I'm hugging this one. It is a very special book. Welcome, Dr. Jonathan Lassiter.
Thank you so much for having me, CeCe. I'm so excited to be talking with you. I'm so excited to be talking on this podcast in particular, the shit no one tells you about writing. I don't know if I can curse. Maybe I can bleep it.
Totally do it.
Okay.
Totally do it. It's in the name.
It was in the title, right? I've listened to, I listened to the podcast, and so I'm super excited to be on, and I'm super excited to talk to you because, as I've told you countless times offline, like I just trust you so much, and you are like the foundation for me in this whole process. So I'm excited to share with the listeners this journey that we've taken together.
And it's been quite a journey. Let's go all the way back to, 2021?
Is that when? 2021, I think so.
I think, yeah. So you sent out a query letter to PS Literary, my former agency, but plot twist, the query letter wasn't for me. Tell us about that. Put us in that headspace of like, I'm sending out a query letter. How were you feeling?
Yes. So I'm going to go a few steps back. So I've always known that I wanted to write a trade press book. I didn't really know it was called trade press book, but I knew I wanted to write a book for the larger audience. I grew up reading like these Black intellectuals like Cornel West, like Bell Hooks, and I was like, I want to write a book like that one day, right? So I was at the point in my career, I had already written an academic book, and I was like, I'm ready to do it on the big scale, right? For the trade press. And so I literally went to Google. Well, first I was like, I want to write a book, but I was like, but I want it to be on New York Times bestsellers, which that's sort of changed now, but we could get there later. But that was the initial thought, right? Not only I want to write a book, I want to write this big book. And so I went to Google and I was like, how do you get a book on the New York Times bestsellers list? And then it was like, well, it's a particular process and you need a book agent. And I was like, well, how do you get an agent? So it was the next Google search. And so it was like, you have to.
Thank you, Google.
Yes, it's like you have to do a query, and I was like, "What's the query?" So literally, Google told me how to do this, and I'm really good at following directions most of the time. And so I just looked up some examples, and I sent out a ton of query emails. And I think I originally sent. The letter I sent to PS Literary was for Carly.
And
I think it was like 3 months later, I hadn't heard anything. So I was getting ready to go out on another round of queries because I hadn't heard anything. And then I got the email from Carly saying, hey, this isn't really for me, but I have this other person, CeCe, who I think might be really interested in this project. And it was admiration, respect, mutual vision at first sight with me and you. And so, we've been on this journal ever since.
I'm so grateful to Carly because she thought of me for this. The second she shared the pitch with me, I was like, now give it to me now. I want to read all of it. I was so excited. And then, of course, you and I hopped on the phone and it's all about the match. And I knew our styles would mesh really well right away because we just clicked. It was like, this is the best. I'm so excited. I really wanted you to sign with me. And I remember being really nervous that you wouldn't. But this just goes to show you that, sometimes the stars align and it's not necessarily the person, who the letter's directed to, but the right person. I firmly believe as long as you put in the work and you keep the faith, the stars will align and what's meant to be will be. And okay, so we matched, we became agent client, and then you set out to work on a revised proposal. How was that process?
So that was a huge learning process, but I was excited about it because, again, I was like, I have a New York City agent. It was a real thing. It was this thing that I've been dreaming about. And I was like, okay, I'm actually doing this. And I didn't know any of this book proposal. I just thought you wrote the book and you sent it. I didn't know that you did a proposal first for nonfiction. right?
Yeah.
And so you walked me through that, and it was a great process. And you really were invaluable in like helping me even frame the book
Mm.
because again, I'm coming from it from an academic point of view because I was a professor, and so I was like really research heavy, and you were like, center it around your stories. Think about stories and what are the lessons you learned from them, and how does this relate to your central thesis? And
Yeah.
that was such a powerful reframe, and definitely, I think has made for a better book than the one I imagined that I would write when I initially started the process.
That's really surprising to me because actually, the thing that most stood out in your work, I mean, I should say the two things. It's two pieces. One, it's your perspective. You have a very unique perspective. Only you could write this book. Only you could tell the story. But I know you come from an academic background, and I know that this is your first foray into trade publishing, but your voice as a storyteller, it's always been so strong. Like, even in your query letter, you're a very voicey writer. We live in a day and age where I feel like so many things are level headed and there's no perspective. I think because people have, I don't know, almost polished themselves too much. I don't know if that's the word, but you have such a sharp perspective, such a sharp point of view. I feel like that's something that's increasingly rare. And you're an entertainer, I think, like you're a showman. You have that charisma, you have that ability. You've always had it, always in everything. Like I've watched your videos online, I've watched your interviews, and like that storyteller voice, I love hearing that I encourage you to tap into it further, but it was always there. Like always there. It was there always there in your proposal. So okay, proposal's ready. And then we actually had a call, you, me, and Brian. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah, no, I don't. We've had you, me, and Brian have had a lot of calls. So,
Yeah, but that was the
what are the
first
one you're
one. That's when
thinking
I
about?
met
The
Brian.
very
So this
first
is the
one.
one. So you wanted to make because the proposal is usually a Word document, but you really wanted to make it pretty. Do you remember?
Yes,
And you were like, okay,
yes,
can you hop on a call and tell our listeners who Brian is? Because people don't know.
yes.
Yeah.
So Brian is the love of my life. I always get mushy when I talk about him because, like,
Aww.
I just really love him. But Brian's my
Aww.
husband, and he has a background in design. He worked on Wall Street doing design brand for a ton of years. And so when I was doing the proposal, he was like, we should design something, make it more like an actual
Yeah.
book with the cover and stuff. And so he had all these ideas. And by the way, Brian is also in love with you too, because he's always
Aww.
like, what does CeCe think? What does CeCe think? Text CeCe.
Love them.
So he wanted to talk to you about that. And he had
Yeah,
design
we had a
ideas.
call.
Yeah.
I feel like this is an interesting anecdote for our listeners because, when you write a book, definitely there's one name on the cover, and that is Dr. Jonathan Lassiter. But you know what? You need a team behind you, a team of supporters, a team of cheerleaders, a team of people who challenge you. And if you're lucky enough to have family, in this case, your husband, who can bring, an ear if you need an ear, who can bring, I don't know, his talent if you need his talent. Just, it's really helpful. I encourage everyone out there who's listening to this and you're working on your book. If you are lucky enough to have people, whether it's family or not, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, but people behind you, it doesn't have to be lonely, right? I feel like that makes a difference.
It's really true. And I don't think I've done this on any other platform because no one's really asked me. So thank you for asking me.
Yeah.
But, I acknowledge him in the book,
Yeah.
but I will say that he really, like behind the scenes, when we talk about the book, I'm like, this is our book. Because
Yeah.
he was reading every single chapter draft, right? He was like, no, too many statistics in this one. It's too researchy, go back, rearrange this, intersperse the story with, and so he really helped me shape that voice that you're talking about because it is there, but I fear that I have a tendency to try to be too polished because that's sort of the world I grew up in, like as an elder
Mm.
millennial, right? Is to always
Mm-hmm.
be on your A game, and the vulnerability piece too. So he definitely also helped me with the structure
Yeah.
and tone and gave me tons of feedback. So yeah, so he's definitely a big part of it. Yeah.
Well, that's really exciting. Yeah. I just feel like there's always a village to support, or there should be anyway. So we have the super beautiful proposal, we send it out, and then of course I remember texting you one day and being like, hey, can we get up on the phone? And we got on the phone and I'm like, we have an offer. And so how did you feel? So this book story is unique. The acquiring editor of this book ended up not being the editor that worked on you with this book.
Mhm.
It's a complicated story, people. So tell us about that. Tell us about the first experience of receiving that offer and that initial call.
Yeah, so before that, so that very first offer, one, I was like super excited. Real quick side note, I have other friends who are trying
Yeah.
to publish books, and they're like, you know, this was super fast, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, I was like,
You
because
did.
I was over
You
there
did.
stressing. I was like, no
I
one's
know.
gonna want it. And they were like, no,
I
this
know.
like they were like, people are like decades trying to get a book deal.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. So the first one, we talked to the publishing house, the editor, and again, all brand new for me. So it was
Yeah.
a great learning experience. But again, you walked me through it. You told me what to expect. I remember the editor was like, I really want this book, but I have to take it back to,
Yeah.
the heads. And that one never came through because I think she couldn't get the big folks to sign off on it. But
Yeah.
then,
Maybe.
yeah,
I'm
but
trying to remember.
then, yeah, it was one prior.
Because
I
there
do
was one
remember that.
person who came in, but we didn't like the offer. There was one person who did not come in, and then there was anyway, I don't remember now all the details. It's
Yeah.
been too many years.
It is exactly a journey. So, but when we did get the offer that actually came through, it was very exciting. Again,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh, and I'll share with your listeners because I know that these are people who are in writing who are in this journey, a lot of them at the beginning
Yeah.
stages. Again, I didn't know anything. So you were like, this is a good offer.
Yeah.
And again, I thank you
Yeah.
for that because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
what should I?
Yeah.
And you were like, this means that they're
Yeah.
serious. This means
Yeah.
that they are serious about the book. And so I was like really excited. But long story short, that editor ended up, I think, leaving the publishing house for personal reasons. And
Yeah.
then I
She left
got,
the industry period. It wasn't like a going to
oh,
another
okay.
house. Like she left publishing. Yeah.
So then I got, the book was picked up by or assigned. I don't actually know what
Yeah.
happened on the back end to another editor who
Yeah.
did a couple of drafts with, was very helpful.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I think that imprint got
That imprint
dissolved or
folded.
something.
That
Yes.
imprint folded. So yeah,
Yeah.
we had to navigate quite a few things. Yeah. The imprint
Yes.
folded. And that editor was, I don't know what the situation was because I don't want to misspeak, but no longer in that role. And so imprint gone, editor gone, and
Hmm.
Jonathan is all of a sudden in his third editor, right? Like,
All of a
yeah,
sudden in my third
yeah,
editor, and
yeah.
again, I'm not a book person. I mean, I'm a book person. I read books, but I'm not an industry
Industry,
person,
yeah,
so I don't know. I mean, I know much more now, but at the time I didn't know the ins and outs of like which imprint is which and
yeah,
which editor is editor, right? And resources and things like that, which is something else you taught me. Every
yeah,
imprint doesn't have the same resources, right?
yeah.
And
It's
so I
really
remember
different.
when we got to the third editor, and I was like, oh, I'm excited because she's a Black woman, right? And that was exciting for me. I was like, but I don't know really anything besides that. And you were
Yeah,
like, no,
yeah.
this is good. So I really appreciate that.
For everyone who's listening, Krishan Trotman, that's Jonathan's editor, she is known in the industry as the Beyonce of books. Like,
Hmm.
she is a powerhouse. She is someone who I don't like, just Google Krishan Trotman. I'm not going to do the work for you guys, for
Hmm.
your listeners, because you just have to Google this woman and get to know her and follow her on Instagram. She has a wonderful Instagram presence. She totally demystifies the publishing process. And when Krishan reached out to me, because Krishan reached out to me first, I was like already in my head going, I'm so excited that Jonathan's going to get to work with Krishan. Like, yeah. Anyway, I was really excited. But of course, it's still stressful. It's so stressful, right? To be like, wait, I'm on my third editor. My book isn't even out yet. You know?
It was very stressful, and the book got pushed back because we thought we were
Yeah.
gonna have an earlier pub date, and
Mhm.
then but
Oh,
Krishan came in,
yeah.
and Krishan was
Yeah.
very hands on, and I'm thankful for that. And Krishan was like, actually, again, I want to fine tune this. I want to make it. She was like, oh, it needs to be shorter. So we cut
I
out like
remember.
5 chapters from the book. And she was like, this needs to be sort of, the through line. She really had a lot of great ideas and helped mold the book even more. But that pushed the pub date back. So I was like really concerned about that.
I
But then
remember.
eventually I was just like, listen, I gotta accept this, right? This is as part of the process. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was again a big development that I was again, everything was such a learning process. I just felt like I just learned so much so quickly.
The thing about publishing is if you want to succeed in the traditional publishing space, anyone listening, you need 3 things. You need a talent for storytelling, a talent for writing. These are 2 completely different things. And the third thing you need is a winning mindset. And part of the winning mindset, which by the way is the hardest of all 3 to achieve, part of the winning mindset is being able to pivot and adapt. And like life will throw you curveballs. Publishing will throw you curve boulders, you know? And so these boulders are coming your
Anvils.
way. Yes, exactly. Anvils, much better. This is why you're the writer. So, and then you have to find a way to not only get out of the way of the boulder, but dance while doing it, and look good. And so you do that. I know it was hard. I know you're saying it was hard, Jonathan, but the thing that makes you such a dream client to work with, in addition to your talent, is the fact that like you just understand how the world works. There's so many people out there who are like, I want to have this, what you have, a name on a book cover, a book in bookstores, in the major bookstores with a major press. But they don't understand that in order to get this, which yes, is very prestigious and amazing, and oh my gosh, amazing to be able to hold your own book. You actually have to play chess with boulders coming your way, with anvils coming your way, and it's really hard. It's really hard. And you have that. And so my question to you is, throughout all this learning process that you've mentioned, what's something that if you could go back, like you could go back to younger Jonathan, Jonathan, when he decided to first write a book for the wide audiences, like what message would you convey, if any? Maybe you would want to not mess with the, space-time continuum. I don't know.
I think I would want to know just how long the process could be.
Yeah.
And like you said, how many pivots there would be. And also right size my expectations. Because I came into this like, I want to be a New York Times bestseller. And trust me, that would be great if it still happened. However,
everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was putting so much pressure on
Yeah.
myself, and it took away from being able to enjoy it. So I think I would tell that younger version of myself to enjoy the process more, because you're right. Like, I'm a by any means necessary person. So that's why I'm like, oh, the game is chess. Okay. And I play chess, right? Because I'm like, nothing's more important than accomplishing the goal, right? My emotions, I'll handle them on the back end, right? I'll cry to my husband, but I'm going to do what's required. But part of that was like I didn't enjoy it, and I had friends who were like, "You had a major book deal with a top 5 publishing, like, and you're miserable. Why aren't you enjoying it?" And so
Interesting.
I wish I would have told myself to not focus on, being again. Or Cornell West, Race Matters, and how that blew up. I mean, I know that was in the 90s, but that was sort of like the very first vision of what I had in mind. But that took away my ability to really be in each of those moments and enjoy them to the max. Not to say that there was no joy in the process, there was a lot of joy in the process, but I would tell my younger self that.
That's really wise. I love that. I feel like every author goes into this being like New York Times bestseller. And there's just something about that list, right? We spend a lot of time on the podcast attempting to, I hope we succeed, but attempting to educate people and say, look, this is the percentage of books that make it to the New York Times bestseller list. I don't remember the number now, but it's something like 0.0001%, something like that. It's a curated list. It's not just based on numbers. If it were based on numbers, we would all be able to predict the list by looking at sales, and we can't. I use analogies. I say things like, if you decide to be an actor, you don't want to win an Oscar in your first audition. Like I try so hard, but it doesn't matter. No matter what I say, It doesn't matter. Everyone has this goal. And I feel like, if you're able to do what you seem to be doing, which I so admire, which is like, yeah, yes, it's still something I want. I'm not going to say I don't want it, but I'm not going to let it take away from the parts I can control and the joy of the process. Then I think it's a really awesome goal to have. I just feel like it can't be. I say this to authors all the time. Don't allow the rigidity of your goals to take away from the joy of your accomplishments, because there's so many accomplishments, right? Like, it's so amazing. It's so hard.
And in each of those steps that we talked about in that journey is an accomplishment. And I think
Yes.
for me, and I've done this in other areas of my life too, it's like I'll achieve things and check on to the next thing.
Interesting.
And
Interesting.
I found myself doing that with this project as well. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely okay. So you matched with Krishan, you edited the book. How was the publicity piece of it? Because I know you have, again, big goals, and
Mhm.
you're very charismatic, and you're one of those authors who's very willing to promote the book. Let's talk about the publicity piece. What did you do? Like, what decisions did you make to promote your book? How have you been finding that? Your book isn't out yet. We are recording this on Halloween, guys. So the book is not out yet. But, hopefully by the time you guys are listening to this interview, you'll be like, amazing.
Yes, hopefully you have the book and you love it.
Yeah.
But in terms of publicity, I went big. At least I think
Yeah.
it's big. Like you said, I have big goals. And so in addition to working with the in-house publicity at Legacy Lit, I am publicity and marketing team who are great. I also hired my own outside PR firm, and they're doing amazing work. What I did not know, and I'll be honest, because again, I want people to learn from
Yeah.
from my
Yeah.
journey. It's so expensive. I did not expect it to be that expensive, but I also
Yeah.
at the time felt like if I have any chance, I had
Yeah.
to get outside because again,
Mhm.
I'm coming from the academic world. I'm coming from a therapist world, being a psychologist, doing therapy with people. I'm like, I'm not huge on social. I don't
Mhm.
have a huge name. So
Mhm.
how am I going to get this book in front of anyone if I don't have this team, this part of the
Yeah.
village that can amplify the book? So I went that route and I don't regret it. Well, it's an investment. Like again, Brian
Yeah.
and I, we're like, this is an investment and we're doing it, but it's no small thing. I'll say that.
No.
But they
No.
are
Yeah.
doing. I'm pleased with what's happening though.
The thing, to keep in mind for our listeners, since this is an educational resource, is publicity is very expensive, and it's not something that has guaranteed results. And when a publicist says that to you, they're not being a bad publicist. In fact, just the opposite. Publicity doesn't come with any guarantees. Like, if you pay for, I don't know, an ad in magazine X, then like you are guaranteed that ad. What that ad will do is a different story, but that's not how publicity works. Publicity is the efforts that a team will put into your book in terms of like free media space, I guess is the best way to describe it that I can come up with right now. And there's no guarantee of that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no guarantee, but I'll also say, in addition to that, one of the things that I learned, you asked me about
Yeah.
publicity,
Yeah.
is how much I am responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm an elder millennial, born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. So I was thinking, oh, you get a book deal with a major publisher, and
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
have this huge machine, and they do have a huge machine,
Yeah.
but they're going to do all this work, and they're just going to be like,
Yeah.
they're going to blow you up like Stephen King, right?
Yeah.
Basically, is what I
Yeah.
thought. And it was like, oh no, who are your contacts? I was like, isn't that why I'm talking to you?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Hey,
no,
fair.
no,
It's a logical
yeah,
thought process. I wrote the book.
right.
You bring the contacts, right? No.
No, not at all. Newsflash, that's not how it works, buddy. So that was, again, a big learning moment for me. However, I found that I actually do know more people than I thought.
Yes.
And I learned to move past my fear of people being like, ugh, why are you contacting me? Get out of here. That was the fear. I was like, oh, if I send
Mm.
this email, they'll be like, oh, they don't know who I am. They'll think I'm silly or whatever, lame, and they're not going to want to promote the book or even be interested in reading the book to think about promoting the book. But actually, people have been so excited about the book and they've
Of
been so
course.
generous. People have been posting on their social medias. I've been in contact with book clubs and they're very excited about reading it and potentially sharing. And people have been emailing me even like first chapter in. They haven't even finished the book, but first chapter in, they're like, oh my God, this is so good. I've had one guy who's a head of a book club was like, this book has changed my life in the past 2 days. And I'm like, oh my God. Someone else posted on their Instagram, How I Know White People Are Crazy and Other Stories is a beach read. I'm reading it on the beach right now. And so it was just, oh my God, like people are actually
Yeah.
excited about
Yeah.
this thing that I've worked so hard on and they're getting it. Like the voice that you talked about, people are
Mhm.
like, oh my God, your voice is so clear. It's so accessible.
Yes.
And your
Yeah.
intelligence shines through as well. And to me, that's not a boast, it's a relief because I know how intentional I was, how many drafts it was, and how
Yes.
much of killing my darlings it was, right?
Hmm.
Again, I'm a by any means necessary person. So you, Brian, my editors, I would be in love with something and they'd be like, nah, this don't work, or this is too academic, or this is too heady, whatever. And I would be like, okay, get rid of it. However, it still hurt, right?
Of
There was
course.
a initial sting, and I'm a very disciplined person, so I was very disciplined. And to get that depth of emotion and voice, I had to really put myself back in those moments. And a lot of it was painful. And so
Sure.
for people to be reading it and say to me, oh my gosh, this is so
Hmm.
powerful. I feel the emotion. This is so
Hmm.
clear. The insights are there. I'm like, oh, thank God, because I was so focused on
Yeah.
that meticulous work that would be what happened. And the fact that it is happening, I'm just so
Hmm.
relieved.
Sure. I love that. I love that
Hmm.
takeaway. Something that our listeners always ask us about, particularly when they're writing memoir or any memoir adjacent book. And there is a lot of your story in this book.
Hmm.
This book has so much vulnerability and intimate moments that you are sharing, hard moments to share, inspiring moments to share, growth moments that you're sharing. How did you handle the piece of, I'm going to write a book and my life's going to be out there, and there are people in my life who, they are in this book too from your perspective? Like, how do you handle that? How emotionally, psychologically, and just practically, how did you handle that?
Yeah, I'm smiling, audience, because it was a emotional roller coaster, right? So many emotions came into play when thinking about putting my life out there and the vulnerability. And again, CeCe, you're so great. You were like, no one likes a perfect person. You were like,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
like messy people. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay. Again,
Yeah.
it was scary, but I'm a by any means necessary person. So I was like, I guess I'm putting it out here.
Yes.
And so in doing that though, again, it did take an emotional toll. I remember I have sickle cell anemia, which I write about in the book, which is a, congenital chronic illness. And I remember writing about a pain crisis I had, and it was a paragraph or two. And after writing that, I was done for the rest of the day. I couldn't write anymore. Luckily, I didn't have to teach that day. So I was like literally on the couch for the rest of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
But that was what was required to get
Mm.
that vulnerability. So that's a part of that journey of putting my life on display. The other part was that some of the people who I feel like perpetuated a lot of the microaggressions that illustrate the whiteness mindset that I write about in the book, I kind of wanted to put them on blast. So
Hmm.
part of me
Hmm.
was like, I want to say their name, but legal purposes, you can't, right? So part of that was I took this in silence, but now I'm using my voice to
Yeah.
highlight these injustices. So part of
Yeah.
it was that as well in telling my personal story. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not scary, you're doing it wrong, right?
Hmm.
Like it's supposed to be scary. It's supposed to
Hmm.
be emotionally draining. It's not fair that it is because you already went through so much, but that's the storyteller's burden to bear, I suppose. If you had to pitch your book, like you're in an elevator, okay?
Okay.
And you're with, I don't know, a major producer. You guys are in an elevator ride together. And he's like, "Oh, so what's your book about?"
Hmm.
Would you be able to do it? I test out every author, just so you know. I'm
Yeah.
like, could you do it? Because sometimes published authors are like, I don't even know my book's genre. So could you pitch your book if you had to?
I think I would. I hope I would be able to, but I
So
don't know
let's
how
see it.
good
Let's
it would
hear
be.
it. No.
So here's the pitch. A black male psychologist pulls back the curtain on the narrowness of mental health and psychology field. He tells stories from personal life about discrimination, but also triumphs of how he went from a young boy in Georgia with a chronic illness to this acclaimed and respected psychologist.
Love that. You did it.
Yeah.
Round of applause. No, you did it. That was amazing. Okay, so another question I have is about the title. I know
Hmm.
there was for a moment we almost didn't have. So I am obsessed with this title, okay? I want to know from our listeners and I want honesty. I want honesty. I do not want you guys to say what you think. I want to hear. How do you feel about the title? How I Know White People Are Crazy and Other Stories. Notes from a Frustrated Black Psychologist. I want to know how you feel about this title. I have no doubt in my mind that this is a title that can spark controversy because Jonathan was actually asked to change this title by two different editors. And the title is still here. The title did not change. I mean, I suppose in the original version, there was no notes from a frustrated Black psychologist, but that also was not the controversial piece. The controversial piece was how I know white people are crazy. How did you feel about that request? And would you tell us the story of how this title came to be kept?
Yes. So I think from the very beginning, from the very first editor, there was talk about, oh, would you be open to changing the title if
Yeah.
it came to that, right? And
Yeah.
again, I'm a by any means necessary person, so I was like, sure, right? As long as the book gets out. However, I love the title. I thought it was appropriate. So if I could help it, I didn't want to change it. But again, I wanted to, the
Yeah.
project
Yeah.
was more important than the title. But we continued to keep it, and there was a concern about whether or not the title could sell, the controversy of it, and how I think mainstream organizations, companies,
Mm-hmm.
schools would feel about it. Would they want to
Mm-hmm.
bring an author to their organization or campus with a book this title? But I felt very passionate. I still feel very passionate about it. It's something that I stand behind because I think it's so appropriate. How I Know White People Are Crazy and Other Stories is exactly that. In it, I describe this whiteness mindset and how it makes us all crazy and how white people are the ones that benefit from it the most. And How I Know White People Are Crazy, that particular story was about me failing a diversity project as the
Yeah.
only person of color from marginalized background. And so it was just so appropriate because in that particular case, those white people were crazy. So it really was a lesson in courage and believing in my vision and and sticking to it. And again, it helped that you were so supportive of the title and you love the title so much. And also
The best title.
the election
Yes.
too, because
Mm-hmm.
I was open to changing it, but then the election happened and I saw those post voting
Yeah.
polls, those statistics, and I'm like, oh no, this is a white people thing. White people got us here. So we need to call it what it is. Again, this title is an act of courage, is an attempt to call a thing, and to not shy away from the truth, or at
Yeah.
least my truth. So,
Yeah. I don't want to be ridiculous and get emotional, but it might be my most proud moment as an agent in terms of observing what my client has done. I remember it vividly. The title had changed to We're All Crazy, Notes from a Frustrated Black Psychologist, which is not a bad title, but it is not the best title ever, which in my opinion is How I Know Why People Are Crazy is the best title ever. And then the election happened, and this was already done. Like we had updated emails about it. Our internal files at my former agency were updated. I updated my team. I was very sad about it, but I, like you, accepted that the book doesn't belong to Jonathan only. You, CeCe, are not the only member of the team. Like, this is a part of the larger good. Fine. Wasn't happy about it, but fine. And we were honest about not loving the title change, but honest also about the strategy behind it and how, everyone wants the book to succeed. And then the election happened. And I remember the email you wrote, which was the most brilliant, kind, inspiring email. I don't have it in front of me, but it essentially said, it had other things, but one of the things you said was, I think in the aftermath of the election, it has become clear to everyone that we are not all crazy. It's not all of us who are crazy. So I think it makes sense to keep the title. What do you guys think? How could anyone argue with that? Look at the brilliant chess playing situation that happened, right? You were like, I suspect it is not all of us, And I was just like, round of applause. Can I please get a standing ovation for my client here, who's such a brilliant man? Anyway, and of course, everyone agreed because everyone was like, you know what? Excellent point. And you could tell that everyone had a moment of, it wasn't that you did checkmate on them, because that could have been the case because it was so brilliant. But no, everyone had a legitimate epiphany where they were like, oh yeah, we're not all crazy. And again, Krishan is a Black woman. Mahito, who works under her, also a Black. Like, we have a team of people of color, and people were like, yeah, yes, we do see what you mean, And so, yeah, and the title became the title.
And we have it today. I'm so proud of it. So proud of it.
I'm so proud of the title, of all of your work, of everything you did for this project. I could not be prouder of this amazing book and the brilliant stories in here. I want everyone to read this and tell me their favorite story. It's probably going to be the diversity. I don't know which one it's going to be, but there are some stories here that make you go, oh, wow. Oh, wow. So as a last question, I always just ask this of every single person on the podcast. Please recommend us a book, either a book you read and you love, or that you want to read and you're excited for, or anything else.
Okay, I'm going to go fiction. I read a lot of nonfiction.
Yeah.
I'm going to go fiction. I read a lot of romance. I'm not going to recommend one of those. But one of the fiction was, and I
totally recommend one of those.
Oh, I'm not going to recommend one of those.
Okay.
But I texted you about the book that I'm about to say.
Yeah.
And I don't know how old it is. It's new to me. But Yellowface was so good. It was so good.
Oh my God, it's so good.
It was so
and so
good.
Messed up.
It's so messed up. Like,
so messed up.
So I was like, I texted you about it. I was like, have you read this? Like, this is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you just want like a really good, and it's almost like a thriller, and I love thrillers. So if you want something that's like you can really immerse yourself in, and it has a really good message about cultural appropriation and race relations, which are all things that are important to me. And one of the great parts about it, I'm sorry, I'm getting really excited.
No.
One of the great things about it is the insight into the publishing industry. Oh my God.
Yes.
That was so, I was like,
scary.
It's scary, but so spot on. And I was like, oh my God. So Yellowface is one of the best things I've read in the past year.
Yes, agreed. And to everyone listening, we are recording this on Halloween. So it is a spooky recommendation, not in the way people expect, but it is, because it will make you afraid to break into publishing, but also will make you want to break into publishing. So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been wonderful. I hope we get to do this again.
Yes, thank you so much, CeCe. You are amazing. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful.
And that's it for today's episode. I hope you'll join us for next week's show. In the meantime, keep at it. Remember, it just takes one yes.